It's 6 p.m. on Wednesday here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. And these are the top stories we're following at this hour. South Korea's Red Cross pre-selects 500 candidates out of 66,000 war-separated families for possible reunions next month. The final list, however, will include only a fifth of them. And while concerns linger that any kind of provocation from Pyongyang could hamper the family reunions, satellite photos show new activity at the North's main nuclear site. Plus, job growth slows in Korea as a sluggish domestic demand drags down the number of jobs in the retail sector. We start with the latest on the preparations for next month's reunions for war-separated families. South Korea's Red Cross has begun the process of selecting the families who will take part in the much-anticipated event. Here's our Han Da-eun with the latest arrangement procedures and other pressing issues surrounding the reunion.
For some, it was a moment of joy. For others, there was only despair. South Korea's Red Cross has selected the 500 South Koreans who may get a chance to participate in a long-awaited round of inter-Korean family reunions set for October 20th to the 26th at North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort. The lucky ones were selected at random through a computer-based lottery. However, the candidates were culled from a preliminary shortlist of people that were given priority based on their age, health, and whether they're seeking to meet immediate family or more distant relatives. But as lucky as they are, this is still not the final list of people who will get to meet their long-lost loved ones next month. Of the 500, only 100 will make it to the final list, which will be handed over to North Korea early next month. Only 200 Koreans from South and North will participate in the event. That is by far a number too small, given there are 66,000 survivors in South Korea alone who desperately want to see their relatives one last time before they die. So why only 200? Political watchers say it's because that's the number of people that Mount Kumgang Resort, where the reunions are mostly held, can accommodate at once. Some also point to the fact that Pyongyang reportedly conducts so-called ideological training sessions for its reunion participants. They assume it would be too much trouble for North Korea to carry out those sessions if the number grew too big. Since 2000, 19 inter-Korean family reunions have been held, and only 3,000 people in all are estimated to have met their long-lost relatives. Experts say a new government measure is desperately needed to ensure the reunions will happen on a regular basis in the future. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
The leaders of South Korea's main rival parties hailed yesterday's agreement on the upcoming round of reunions. Both said it's a positive first step toward implementing a deal reached last month between the two Koreas that helped diffuse military tensions on the peninsula. Ji Myung-gil has more.
The leader of the ruling Saenuri party said it was wonderful that the two Koreas had agreed to hold family reunions for 200 war-separated families, adding his hope that the event would build momentum for better inter-Korean cooperation.
Our party will work toward holding reunions on a regular basis and increasing the number of people chosen from each side to reunite with their relatives. We hope this event will help bring peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and enhance bilateral relations.
He also suggested holding higher-level talks to prevent inter-Korean relations from worsening due to a possible missile launch by North Korea next month. October 10th marks the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the North's ruling Workers' Party. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy also welcomed the family reunion agreement, adding that South Korea should continue to work toward improving human rights in the North.
Human rights is a universal value. Therefore, South Korea should make efforts to improve and protect the North Korean people's human rights. We urge the Saenuri Party to cooperate in passing the North Korean Human Rights Act to promote basic human rights.
He went on to say that promoting human rights in North Korea should be done to substantially improve the lives of the North Korean people. The act has been pending in Parliament for 10 years. The opposition chief also urged the government to continue working toward inter-Korean dialogue and exchanges to maintain the hard-won compromise of last month's inter-Korean agreement. 지명길, Arirang News.
Now, suspicious activity has been spotted in 2 areas of North Korea's main nuclear site that are key to the production of plutonium for building nuclear weapons. Our Lee Ji-won reports.
Satellite images and analysis from U.S.-based North Korean monitoring website 38 North show trucks loaded with cargo. The vehicles appear to have been going in and out of the building at the Yongbyon Nuclear Research Center, which houses a 5-megawatt reactor. Another image shows vehicle tracks and trucks around the radiochemical laboratory complex. This is where plutonium is turned into the raw material for building nuclear weapons. 38 North says it's impossible to determine the exact reason for the activity, but one possible explanation could be that North Korea is unloading spent fuel rods from the reactor for the purpose of producing new plutonium. It says a full core of spent fuel rods at the reactor could produce enough plutonium for up to 2 additional nuclear bombs. The website says the latest developments are concerning and should be monitored closely by the international community. It's thought North Korea has collected enough plutonium-based fissile material from Yongbyon over the years to arm up to 10 small nuclear bombs. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
China has sent a congratulatory message to North Korea celebrating the regime's establishment. The message has widely been seen as a friendly gesture, but one North Korea expert has implied that relations between the two may not be as friendly as they seem. Connie Kim reports.
China's leader has sent a congratulatory message to the North Korean leader to mark the 67th anniversary of the founding of the North Korean regime. The North Korea Central News Agency reported Wednesday the message was sent by Chinese President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang to Kim Jong-un and his top aides. The message is one sent by China every year, but what's drawing extra attention to this year's message is that for the first time, China said it is seeking stable, long-term bilateral ties with the North. That may be so, but one expert said there may be a way to persuade China to change its policy of supporting the North. Doug Bando of the Cato Institute said in a World Post article from last week, recounting his discussion with a Chinese scholar, that closer cooperation between the U.S. and China could change the calculus in the region. The scholar outlines the major problems between the North and China, with denuclearization chief among them, and proposes trilateral talks with the U.S. as one way to get there. China is North Korea's closest traditional ally, but bilateral ties have long been frayed with Pyongyang's nuclear tests in 2013 and its missile tests. Reflecting Pyongyang's uncomfortable feelings towards Beijing, the North state-run Rodong Sinmun newspaper posted Xi's message on the second page of its Wednesday edition, while congratulatory messages from Russia and Cuba decorated the front page. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Moon Jae-in, the chief of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy party, said today that he would give up his post if the party fails to make progress toward a series of proposed reforms. Moon said he would take action if the reform proposals fail to get the party's approval at a general meeting next week. The NPAD wants to successfully implement a package of proposals to pull the party together. The party has been mired in deep factional strife after successive defeats in major elections. Members of minority factions suspect that major party figures, including Moon, intend to exploit the reform proposals for their own political interests. A crane barge has arrived in waters off Korea's southern coast to salvage a fishing boat that capsized last week, leaving 10 people dead and 8 still missing. The 150-ton barge departed from Jeju Island early this morning and was expected to arrive at the accident site near Chuja Island at around 1 p.m. Korea time. But rather, it arrived just before 4 p.m. due to bad weather. Officials have since started to raise the boat and expect to complete the task by tonight, as long as the weather does not become any worse. Families of the victims are said to be observing the work from a nearby boat. The search and rescue operation is still ongoing for the 8 missing passengers. August was not a good month for job seekers as the number of new jobs added fell below the 300,000 mark. Job creation lost ground due to layoffs by wholesalers and retailers hit by sluggish demand. Kim Min-ji reports.
Labor market conditions in Korea are far from improving. The number of new jobs the country added dipped below the 300,000 mark in August for the first time since April. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows there were only 256,000 more jobs in August compared to the same month last year. The downturn is attributed to losses in the wholesale and retail sectors as they continue to reel from the fallout of the MERS outbreak.
The wholesale and retail sectors posted losses in job creation, causing the number of new posts created to fall.
On a brighter note, the unemployment rate for people between the ages of 15 and 29 came to 8% in August, down from 9.4% a month earlier, thanks to more students finding part-time jobs during the summer break. But the rate is still more than double the nation's overall jobless rate of 3.4%. Following the government's drive to help alleviate the youth unemployment problem, the country's corporations and public institutions have made plans to hire more workers. But experts say although there might be more jobs down the road, the numbers don't actually mean what they appear to, as most of the jobs are internships or training programs that later lead to positions with subcontractors.
Companies are basically hiring new workers by getting rid of their older employees through the wage peak system. But the money saved isn't being used to create quality jobs. Instead, a majority are non-regular positions. So new hires will return to the job market in a matter of years, creating a vicious cycle.
Experts say rather than focusing on short-term outcomes by expanding the number of new hires, companies need to invest in novel growth engines and markets that will naturally lead to more jobs. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's tourism industry is still feeling the effects of the MERS outbreak, which prompted future travelers to cancel trips here in droves. Fortunately, experts expect the sector to recover by next month. Our Park Se-young tells why.
Korea's tourism income has dropped over 10% in recent months, mainly due to the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome. According to statistics released by the Bank of Korea, spending by foreign tourists in the first half of the year was $5.5 billion. This marks an 11% decline from the second half of 2014, when the total was $6.2 billion. It's the biggest drop since 2009, when the nation's tourism sector was hit by a weak Japanese yen. The number of Chinese visitors has been cut in half from nearly 620,000 in May to 315,000 in June. Prior to that, the number of Chinese tourists had been on the rise. The number of Japanese visitors also dropped in the same period from nearly 190,000 to just over 100,000. Although the number of inbound travelers bounced back to normal levels in August, most experts say it's a weak recovery for vacation season. Tourists are also spending less, slowing Korea's tourism growth. According to the nation's tourism account, the average spending per tourist this year up to August was roughly $1,200 per person, a 4.4% drop from last year. But the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute forecasts a recovery early next month, with Chinese airlines having restored the number of flights to Korea in time for China's 7-day National Day holiday from October 1st to 7th. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
An award-winning Thai filmmaker was in Korea with his latest film, Cemetery of Splendor, which is screening at the Asian Arts Theater in Gwangju. Kim Ji-yeon recently sat down with the director to get the details on the mesmerizing film.
One can't help but feel a bit haunted while watching the latest film by Thai writer-director Apitapong Wirasetakul. Cemetery of Splendor is a hypnotic film that follows a woman who cares for a group of soldiers with a mysterious sleeping sickness. It puts the viewer into a dreamlike state that makes the interior world of the film indistinguishable from reality. Wirasetakul has referred to the film, shot in his hometown of Khon Kaen in northeastern Thailand, as a personal portrait of his childhood.
Khon Kaen is a small town back then, 40 years ago. It's in the northeast of Thailand. And my parents are both doctors. So I grew up in this hospital area full of sick people and hospital environment.
Critics, however, have described the film as a representation of Thailand's current political landscape, saying it resembles that of many other Asian countries that had to or are witnessing the vast modernization of rural areas and the political turmoil incurred by corrupt leaders.
My hometown, Khon was nothing 45 years ago, and now it's like big, massive. So the quick change is sometimes you can feel disoriented. And at the same time, it's about this group of people who are sleeping. In a way, it reflects the current political situation in Thailand where you are kind of powerless against the dictatorship.
The film was first screened at Cannes and will be shown at film festivals in Toronto and New York this month. Wirasetakul will also screen a short vapor at the Busan International Film Festival in October. Kim Jung, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. More updates coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time, so stay tuned and goodbye for now.